Alright, so this is another video about feed extrusion process. So feed extrusion is usually used to produce pet food or aqua feed. And today we're gonna talk a bit more about the extrusion process. So let's focus on that, right? So before talking about the extrusion, we need to remember that there are other processes that happen before the extrusion. We're gonna have at least three processes. Very first one is the intake of raw materials. So purchase department will buy raw materials. Those raw materials will be delivered at the factory and then we're gonna receive and store those raw materials, right? Second thing is once those raw materials are stored, we're gonna dose and weigh those raw materials according to a recipe, according to a formula. So we have another department called formulation department. In that department, the job of that department is to observe all the nutritional necessities of our pets, our animals, and see what each raw material will deliver in terms of nutrition. So how much fat, how much protein, how much starch, how much each of those raw materials will deliver, how much vitamins those raw materials will deliver, and observe also the price of those raw materials. So formulation department will merge and will compare all that information to make the best formula, the most cost efficient formula, the most cost efficient recipe, right? And then the job of operation is to dose everything, so respect that recipe and dose it accordingly. Once we have everything dosed, we're gonna move to the next process, which is grinding and mixing. In that process, what we're going to do is pretty much destroy those raw materials and transform those raw materials into a very fine powder. So imagine that at the beginning of this process, when we receive raw materials, we receive whole grains, we receive corn, we receive wheat, we can receive sorghum and other things that are very coarse because it's pretty much whole grains. We also have things that are finer, but in general, things are very coarse. In the grinding process, we're gonna break those raw materials into very fine powder, very similar to a wheat flour that you find in the supermarket, right? And once we break everything down to the size, to the particle size that we want, the next step is mixing. So we're gonna mix all of those raw materials together before sending to the extrusion, which is what we're gonna talk today. And then after the extrusion, we're gonna have other things as well. So we have drying, coating, cooling, up to packing. But let's focus on the extrusion. So when we look at the extrusion process, we see that we have two machines pretty much working together. So two machines that are connected, right? So those machines are the preconditioner that you see here and the extruder that you see represented here, right? So raw materials, when they come from the grinding mixing step, they will come into this what we call live bean, which is just a bean. It's not a very big bean, it's just a regular size bean. So over there you might be able to fit maybe 1 to 2 tons. But the important thing about the live bean is that it also always have an agitator in the bottom of it. And the idea of the agitator is to guarantee that the material that we have inside is always moving, so we give a constant flow of material into this screw here, which is our feeder screw. So the feeder screw will determine the capacity of the extrusion process. So if the feeder screw is running at 2 tons an hour, it means that the conditioner is moving that material forward at 2 tons an hour. 2 tons an hour is falling from the conditioner into the extruder, and 2 tons an hour is leaving the extrusion and we are producing pellets at 2 tons per hour. If it's running at 3, 4, it doesn't matter. What matters here is that the speed of this feeder screw will determine the capacity of our process. So feeder screw sends material to the conditioner, and inside the conditioner we do pretty much three things, right? Very first one is we inject water. So we always inject water from the top of the conditioner to humidify our product, our mesh that is being moving forward inside the conditioner. We also inject steam always from the bottom. So we inject steam from the bottom of the conditioner to heat up and start cooking that product. And as you can see in this picture, we have pedals inside the conditioner, and those pedals, they will agitate the product inside the conditioner. So we three things happening at the same time. We have water that is humidifying our product, we have steam that is heating up, and then we have the pedals that are mixing the mash with the water and steam and moving that mash towards the extruder. So we have water that is humidifying the product, we have steam that is heating up, and we have those pedals that are mixing all the steam with water and the mash and moving that mash forward, right? And once the mash is being moved forward, that mash will continuously fall into the extruder. And inside the extruder, we have a screw and we have a barrel, right? We have a screw here and we have a barrel around with a very small gap. And as we try to push, so the screw will try to push that mesh that is falling from the conditioner towards the end of the extruder where we have the die. But as that screw moves that product forward, what's gonna happen is that that mesh will start compacting, right? Because the gap between the screw and the barrel is very small, so we're gonna start compacting that product. But not only compacting, but we will also start heating up because the gap between those two elements is so small that we're gonna have start friction and shear happening there, and that friction is gonna heat up that mesh, right? So inside the extruder we have a lot of mechanical work, we have a lot of energy to move that mesh forward and also cook the mesh, right? And inside the extruder we can also inject steam, we can inject more water, we can inject oil, and all of that will help to cook the product. Steam will help a lot to cook the product. Water as well. Oil will lubricate and reduce the friction, right? But we could go more into the details here, but what I want to say in this video is that at the very end we also have a die and a knife. So die is just a piece of equipment that will cause a restriction to the flow of material. So material try to leave the extruder, and this die will hold the material down, will create a barrier, and this die will have little holes, and the shape of the holes will be the shape of your product. So if your die have holes that are square, your product will be square. If your die have shapes like little balls, so your product will look like little balls, right? If your product has just circular holes, then your product will be circular as well. So the shape of your product is very similar to the shape of your die, right? And after the die, we have a knife that will cut the pellets in a length you want. So that's pretty much what happens in a very general form, what happens inside the extruder, right? If you want to get more information in how to adjust and how to tweak all those parameters, just contact me, right? And just subscribe to this channel. It's very important for this message to be moved and spread to other people, right? Bye.